that keep them thinking for a minute from beginning to the end.
Man, this he super stubborn, never listen what they telling me.
Blue, black, black, black and blue, black, blue.
This magic gift, what's up, yeah?
Shit, these are when I'm.
Don't stop it, keep it running like a broke. I know this.
Extra clicks, toe tagging, just for kicks. Toe tagging for the hell of it, man. I be toe tagging, leaving hell of it. And if you gon' drag me to the pearly.
Try skinny, look at you, pick appetite of a.
Don't collide with a king. Gotta get mine, gotta get what's yours. Start one time, butterfly downs. Whips and crime, just rip down. No, it ain't crime if no one down. No, gotta get mine, gotta get what's yours. Start one time, butterfly downs. Whips and crime, just rip down. No, it ain't crime if no one down. No, getting old money, stacking bonds and shit. Knock 'em out the park, out the parks and shit. Set my mind on a goal, I accomplish it. And y'all can see me coming like a comet hit. Broke ass figures make me nauseous. And all I do is write like a columnist. I could never do no wrong and it's obvious. I'm the truth coming out like that cause obvious. Your boy on that run that conscious tip. Fuck that, tell him get off of my conscious grip. I only fuck with freaks, that's the raunchiest. Got these hoes in my pockets like a lobbyist. Senator of the streets, leading of the bosses. On that positive tip, bitch, we don't take no losses. I'm on to a zip, to a brick, shit's colossus. And let's run 'em up like the marathon in Boston. Gotta get mine, gotta get what's yours. Start one time, butterfly downs. Whips and crime, just rip down. No, it ain't crime if no one down. No, gotta get mine, gotta get what's yours. Start one time, butterfly downs. Whips and crime, just rip down. No, it ain't crime if no one down. No, all I want is bitches, big booty bitches. The type to hook a steak up and wash the fucking dishes. The type to rock no makeup, them type of girls fictitious. They do it for the man, now Lord is my witness. I've been looking fly dog for so damn long. Yeah, I got more kicks than this whole damn song. Yeah, I ain't doing no hoes with them old ass thongs. It's something like a billy club, whoa, that's long. I ain't trying to wife you, I just want a night you. I don't need your bullshit, here's a box of diapers. Need a contraceptive for that emo. Pushy, then I'm out like you want me. Frontin' like a holy ghost, y'all can't see me. These girls wanna fuck boys wanna be me. Cruising down the bully with my main bitch Reezy. And I'll beat a motherfucker, beat a motherfucker like me. Gotta get mine, gotta get what's yours. Start one time, butterfly downs. Whips and crime, just rip down. No, it ain't crime if no one down. No, gotta get mine, gotta get what's yours. Start one time, butterfly downs. Whips and crime, just rip down. No, it ain't crime if no one knows where the cold one goes. Sing lyrics to make you panic. I'm hard to follow, nobody's got a shadow that's taller than mine. Got this rap shit down to a science, and my alliance is always define the laws of the language. We only alphabet vowels and consonants are reclines. We rapping giants that we master in English. Don't be negative bitches because we came with the vicious explicit vocals that be scaring them locals. We gon' be making the riches and you be tasting delicious flavors of music. Just put it up in your blowholes. Let it into your veins, soak up into your brain. Taking the pain while it's painting a picture. I'm never gonna refrain till everybody's the same. Breaking your spirit with my lyrical scripture.
Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt, doubt.
Real. Unstoppable, like a force to be reckoned with. A motherfucking G on the track, the directorate. If you think you gotta get off your porches and step through it, no obstacle ever set us back. No prerequisite prepares you for the overwhelming show we throwing. We overflowing a golden talent in you till you feel a presence in your bloodstream like potent opiates. Intense like a sunbeam. We ain't quitting soon. I spit game forever until Armageddon severs my spirit and buries my body in the desert. But never will I die for real. My lyrics evolve when you're hearing this song. When I spill the shit, my rhymes are ill. So I've been feeling it like California feels and earthquakes. We really didn't gut it to put meals on your plate. Guaranteed fresh, always pleasing in your taste. Never fucking around, we finish easy in first place.
Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt, doubt.
Real. I live my life patiently waiting for opportunity. When it comes, I'ma take it. People test me every day to play in my potential. I swear bullets says I need credentials. It's a real life essential. So guidance to violence is fake mental. Head to the photos flashback is opening eyes of them again. Face on him, I have that wham. Then it all just hit me. I just have myself an epiphany. Even for the rock, hard war, fall victory. Soon we can be Bon Jovi's Tiffany. Laughing at the wannabe singers as symphonies. Rattling and nobody's talking another with me. I'm another soldier in the California infantry. We gon' global, be fame, more infamy. People from every continent listening. Pistol with top, screaming and whistling. Yes, some motherfuckers say that I'm dreaming. They say that I'm living a life without meaning. Feel disrespected, push it on my shoulder like a soldier. It's going to battle when I'm older. Or look back and laugh at you weak man fools being burned. They heard it like cattle.
Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt, doubt. Real. Never will I doubt, never will I doubt, never will I doubt, doubt, doubt. Real.
to no credit.
Playing rosaries around me going break. Motion gon' make me a pussy, make me God's got it.
Take a shot, take a shot. The money come fast, I'ma make it mine.
Phone banging on the back, yo, come on. Give me
Escucha estar solo.
ya, come.
70 grain, no fake. Everyday digging the grave.
I'm gonna ride it, they call
I'ma run the block. I'ma run.
What you looking at? Tell me what you looking at. Fans wanna get at me, so let
Don't take a
I'm finna go and ape again. Ape again. Fuck up the neck.
I lose myself to find you. It's come to, but I'm blind too. I lose myself. It's come to this. Can't do this. I see myself to blind you, but I'm blind too. Wearing samples like a corpse that's on a hanger. Gaunt paper like sugar on a waiter. Didn't know that my bones were so pretty. Dirty mirror, leave it broken, get a sharp piece. I don't need a thing when I'm drowning here without you. Little broken wing like a pigeon with the south view. I don't need a thing when I'm burning here about you. I don't need a thing. Myself to find you. It's come to this. Run to this. I can't do this. I see myself to blind you.
This is Audible.
Audiobook Empire presents.
Thank you, he said. And Byrne nodded. You have questions for me?
This is Audible.
Audiobook Empire presents A Cyberpunk Saga, Books 1 through 3, by Matthew A. Goodwin, performed by Zachary Johnson. Book 1, Into Neon.
Part 1. Chapter 1. Light crept up the walls as the sun peaked, an orange hue over a calm sea appearing on all 6 sides of the room. Billions of pixels fired to life simultaneously. The recorded sound of lapping waves grew louder, and the simulated smell of ocean air permeated Moss's nose. He had never been to a beach, never seen the sea or smelled the salt air, but it was as familiar to him as his own skin. Lights, he thought, and the simulation ceased. The overhead vitamin D lights flickered to life. His walls went blank, and a space opened next to the bed, which slid out of sight. It would return that evening, washed and made up. As he did every morning, he stood up, feeling refreshed from a perfect night's sleep. Bacon, eggs, and orange juice? He rubbed the base of his skull. His implant always felt odd in the mornings. He had asked his friends if they felt the same way, but none did. Though he had to admit to himself the sample size was small. The blue LED on his Reperp brand Foodier turned on. He heard 2 dull thuds and the hiss of steam from the machine that was built into the wall in the small nook which served as a kitchen. The Foodier slid out a plate with his juice, and then 2 bags plopped out. He took the plate, but was careful to give the bags time to cool. Wake up, world. The wall in front of his table displayed the emblem of his favorite morning show before fading to the friendly face of Marisol May. Every morning, Moss wondered at what time she must have to wake up in order to be on no matter when he tuned in. He was curious about what she was like, if she was as chipper off-camera as she was on. Did she drink juice in the morning? Milk? Coffee? Did she bring treats for the crew on their birthdays? These thoughts floated about his mind as he watched the screen. Good morning, employee. It's another beautiful day in Burb 2152, and if you're watching me, it's probably a good time to hit the gym, she said, smiling out from the screen. Moss lumped her face in the morning, but loathed the daily reminder to work out. Exercise was mandated by Thudoko, and while one was allowed to do it in the comfort of their own hex, it was monetarily incentivized to go to the floor's gym. In local news, a severe storm hit BA City overnight, but here in the burbs, we were unaffected. The storm warning systems worked to perfection and kept all employees safe and secure. In other news, 2152's very own Johnny Mukazi made it to the semifinals of Burbs Has Skills with his magic cards. I know I'll be rooting for Johnny tonight, will you? She asked into the camera. And Moss knew he would be. He loved the show and always watched virtually from the audience after work. If he is eliminated, though, be sure to catch the new season premiering next week, Marisol continued. She kept talking as Moss ate and slid his dirty plate onto the waiting tray before it glided into the wall. He stood to get ready for the day ahead. He did not enjoy the gym, but it was the only time in the day when he was guaranteed to see his friends, and that was the thing that made it worthwhile. He arched his back before stepping over to his wardrobe. Dormidos? The door to the wardrobe hissed open as 3 metal arms unfolded from the ceiling. Moss raised his hands, and the arms removed the white linen shirt from his torso before sliding off the white linen pants. He stepped out of the pants, and the arms dropped them into a chute in the wardrobe for laundering. The arms then slipped on his Dermidos athletiskin and sealed him in. It shimmered and buzzed as it read his vital signs and performed a health scan. His health and employment statistics appeared on the screen next to Marisol May. Thudoko employee 06187300, days 7,035, weight 77.14 kilograms, productivity points 7,860 out of 10,000. He left his hex and stepped into the hallway. Fluorescent light filled the space with oppressive brightness, and it smelled like freshly opened plastic wrap. He walked down the long white hall for what seemed to be an endless time, passing door after unadorned door. The space was silent except for his light footfall on the carpeted ground, and the occasional screen projected on the wall where Marisol continued to speak. Eventually, he entered the common space where small tables were surrounded by comfy chairs. A bank of elevators sat on the far side, where, looking down into the open center of the burb, more hallways split in many directions and had lighted signs above. Employees were chatting, drinking coffee, and watching television in the little area, but Moss walked past without saying a word to anyone. He followed one hallway toward the gym, smelling it before the doors even came into view, cleaning solution and sweat filling his nostrils. As he entered, he was greeted by the backs of several men pretending to stretch or limber up before stepping onto the machinery. He knew why, and as he pushed through the throng, he saw them. The Butler sisters were side by side on stair machines, stepping up and down in unison as the men leered. Twins in their young 20s, the sisters were as famous for their beauty as they were for their parties. Moss had never spoken to the sisters, much less attended one of their parties, but they were the stuff of legend. Moss paused a moment, watching the girls sway on their matching Dermidos second skins. Some of the men were staring so intently Moss knew they were utilizing ocular implants to film the girls. As much as he enjoyed watching, the idea of saving it put him ill at ease, and he began to make his way beyond the group. "Moss!" he heard, and snapped back to reality. He turned to see Gibbs and Izzy on treadmills on the other side of the gym. They were both trotting at a slow pace, just enough to qualify for their daily incentive. He approached, and Izzy wrinkled her nose at him. This was the sign they had developed as children to indicate something was up. Moss knew her warning meant Gibbs was in a mood. "Moss, we missed you last night!" Gibbs barked as he jiggled on his treadmill. His face was flushed, covered in a sheen of sweat. "Don't tell me you stayed home and watched Skills when you could have been out with us!" Moss hung his head in mock apology, admitting, "I stayed home and watched Skills." "Stupid!" Gibbs admonished. "We watched the match and then chatted up some girls from panel repair. I even got one girl's hex number," he bragged as Moss stepped onto a treadmill between his friends. Izzy scoffed. "You guys had no chance with those girls," she mocked. "Tell them what happened when you called her hex." "Some guy answered," Gibbs said quietly before adding, "and had never heard of her. But she was drunk when we met and probably just said the wrong number." At this, Izzy burst with laughter. "Oh, please," she chided. "That girl wanted less than nothing to do with you, Gibby." "Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. And don't call me that, Isabel." Moss listened to his friends bicker as sweat beaded on his forehead, legs, and back. Every now and again he stole a glance at Izzy, but when she caught his eye, he looked away quickly. Things had been different with her lately. He had been in love with her since they were children. Their parents had been friends and enrolled them in the same company school. He had loved her for the way they played, the way she knew his mind before he did. And when she grew into womanhood, he had lusted for her. Gibbs had noticed, but when he asked about it, Moss used the ancient lie that she's like a sister. Gibbs had never bought it, but never pushed the issue either. For all his bluster, Gibbs was a good friend. Everything had changed with Izzy when Moss returned to his hex after a night of drinking and signed in to order a relief aid. When the question of customization appeared on the menu, he had paused. He knew people did it, had sex with their friends without consequence. But Moss had only ever entertained the notion. Gibbs had explained his night with the Butler twins in excruciating detail, but Moss had only groaned. That night, he found himself entering Izzy's information, and soon thereafter a perfect replica of his friend waited at his door. They drank together, and while the machine had none of her personality, he stopped caring once he asked the facsimile to disrobe. He had run his hands over his friend in a way he had only ever dreamed. Squeezed, licked, entered. After his release, though, he sent her on her way and was left with nothing but confusion, guilt, and a week's fewer wages. Since that night, he could only look on her with shame, though she had seemed even sweeter, as though she could sense his discomfort and wanted to help. He shook the thought from his mind, and sweat cascaded from his head. "Watch it!" Gibbs snorted. "Yeah, you're getting me all wet," Izzy added, and a chill ran down Moss's spine. The rest of the workout was uneventful, full of Gibbs bragging and Izzy busting his chops. They parted ways, and Moss was happy to return to his hex and begin his day. He sat at his workstation and picked up his transmitter. He flipped the switch and felt the usual relay in the back of his head as his eyes faded from the world in front of him to the world outside the walls of the city. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of kilometers away, where the bacteria was rampant, unprotected by the fields of misters, Moss's drudge, Moss 2, came to life and greeted its controller. "Good morning, Moss," it said in a computerized version of his own voice. "Were Izzy and Gibbs up to their usual antics?" "You know it," Moss snorted with a laugh, and Moss 2 chuckled. The adaptive AI was becoming more like his controller every day, by design. The company took their employment motto, "Work with yourself," very seriously, and utilized brain maps to make the bot and operator as close as possible. Thudoco had attempted fully autonomous units in the past, but they never measured up to their guided counterparts. Despite huge advances in artificial intelligence, the drudges still required a human component, one which Moss was more than happy to provide from the comfortable solitude of his own hex. He loved spending the days with Moss 2, preferring him even to the company of his friends. "How have you been?" Moss adjusted his sitting position, getting comfortable for the day's work. Moss 2 let out a digital sigh. "The night operator got me wedged in a service pipe, and I spent most of the shift waiting for a repair unit." Moss grunted. He wouldn't be so bothered if it weren't such a common occurrence, but he felt like the night crew were dinging his drudge at least once a week. He observed once again, "They need to fab more repair units. They also need to fab more drudges in general," Moss 2 added with disgust lacing his voice, a near-perfect mirror of how Moss would say it. "Seriously, they shouldn't be dividing you guys between operators. I'm so sick of night shift denting you," he griped. "Drudges are a scarce resource imported from another city at great cost to Thudoco," he said the company line. Moss hated it when corporate programming overrode the AI. I know, Moss groaned. "I just wish I didn't have to share you is all." "Employees who reach promotion level 3 receive exclusive use of a bot, and at promotion level 5 the right to customize their unit," Moss 2 reminded him, as though it was the first time. "Yeah, thanks, 2, Moss moaned, fully aware of company policy. As he did every day, he regretted naming his bot Moss 2. He had been so young when he began work, and when he had been given the chance to name his drudge, he gave him the first name which came to mind. As employees were not given a chance to rename them until level 3, he had been stuck with this name for years. He had spent countless nights trying to concoct a better name, but since he had only earned level 2 the year before, he had a long way to go before it would matter. "Depot 2428 was raided last night," 2 informed him. "Really? Feels like it's happening all the time now." "Scubas?" Moss asked, knowing the answer before he heard it. The company clearly wanted its employees to know some information, but not much. "Don't know and couldn't tell you if I did," Moss 2 answered easily. "I know," Moss sighed. He would ask Izzy later. Even though she worked with internal burb security, she usually had good intel on what was happening outside the walls. "What's our first assignment? I can't expect to make level 3 if we shoot the breeze all morning." "Truer words," 2 said. "First up is a panel repair." The HUD display in the corner of Moss's vision showed the direction of the needed repair. Moss 2 stepped off his charging pad, walking over to a waiting solar bike, which Moss borrowed from the company without reading the licensing agreement. He knew he would be paying it off for years if he wrecked it. Moss 2 threw his leg over the seat, gripped the handles, and after a quick interface, the bike hummed to life. It lifted easily off the hoverpad, and Moss drove it out onto the service road. What used to be an asphalt motorway had now fallen into disrepair and was cracked and broken where it hadn't been reduced to rubble. But it was a clear path, and the bike glided above it easily. The sun was still low. Waves of heat radiated off the ground. Moss had never experienced heat like what he saw through 2's camera, but it looked unpleasant, and he knew it could damage the drudge over time. Moss followed the indicator north along the road until he had to turn into the sea of solar panels. The cameras compensated for the dark of the shade as his drudge rode over the flattened earth between the tall metal supports. He hummed along the desolate sameness until the indicator blinked that he was getting close. Another bike sat parked at his destination. "Oh, dick," Moss said. "Use of such language is unadvised, and you will be docked 1 productivity point for the day," 2 informed him sullenly. "I know," Moss groaned, holding his mind's tongue from further expletives. He parked next to the iridescent blue bike with painted red and yellow flames rising from the levitt engine at its base. Ira had beaten him to another work order, and while the practice was frowned upon by fellow engineers, it was allowed. It infuriated the employees to no end, though they all understood that the company wanted to encourage the competition. More work got done if every employee was in constant risk of having someone else complete their job. People like Ira may have been loathed by their coworkers, but the company loved them. Ira's drudge jumped down from the panel with an unnecessary flourish as "Work Order Complete" flashed on Moss's display. "You have to get up earlier than that to beat me," said an automated voice from Ira's drudge. The sound was unnaturally computerized, as the company had never quite perfected neural voice output. "You know that was my WO, Ira," the same computerized voice said from 2's speaker. It didn't properly convey the anger and jealousy he felt. Ira's drudge was painted in the same blue and yellow as his bike, and Moss loathed how cool he thought it looked. "Whatever, lame name. You know I'm called Osiris out here," the drudge said, and Moss could hear the condescension even if it wasn't relayed. The dig at his drudge's name landed hard, and he moved Moss too fast toward Osiris. "Your planned course of action is a violation of corporate policy and shall not be enacted," Moss heard in his mind's ear as 2 ground to a halt. Laughter emitted from Osiris's speaker. It was an unnatural sound which always sent a chill down Moss's spine. "Listen, friend," Osiris said as he strode toward 2 with his metal head held high and arm outstretched. "You're young. If you want to make it out here, you must do some things which piss people off. You want to be a saint, have fun staying level 2 forever. I'm level 6. I got a sweet paint job for my drudge, own my own company bike, and have a 3-story hex. You think I care if I annoy you? You think it matters to me that Jenny screams at me because she can't complete an order as fast as me, or that Bert lectures me about ethics? No. My life is great. The company loves me. I have everything I could want. So take note, kid. You want to make it in this world, you have to do what's best for you, regardless of the consequences." Now it was Moss's turn to laugh. Just a slight, quiet chuckle. "What a sad way to live," he muttered to himself. But Ira heard it. "When you log out tonight, look around and tell me who's sad," Osiris said as he mounted his bike. Moss didn't answer. His moment of superiority had passed, and he worried that Ira was right. He had never done anything of note with his life. Nothing out of the ordinary or unexpected. Nothing even interesting. He wanted to log out, go sit and sulk alone in his hex. But no. Ira was famous around the burb for this. Moss had never met the man or anyone who had met him, but everyone knew him. Word around the office was that there was one like him in every burb, someone who took advantage of the system in such a way to benefit themselves. People loved to grumble about him, stand around after work complaining about how he moved in and took their jobs. But it's how the company wanted it. They fostered the competition and rewarded employees like Ira. For as annoying as Moss found it, there was truth to what he had said. Moss had almost no perks in his hex. He had an unadorned drudge, and still had very little saved. He was fine at his job, but not great, and didn't aspire to be. He was content in his life, but that was it. He snorted as he brought up the menu of available work orders. As he always did, he picked the next nearest job rather than the highest priority and therefore highest value job. Moss grimaced. Ira's words still ringing as he rode off. Moss felt a pang he couldn't quite identify. "He's right," Moss said. "You believe Osiris is correct?" Tu inquired. "Yes. Bring up the full list of all work orders regardless of availability," Moss said with a grin. Tu did so, and Moss looked at the display. Moss had watched Ira head northeast, toward the road. He saw that the top priority job was in the same direction, and had an engineer assigned. They were 7 minutes away. If Ira stuck to the road, Moss thought he would arrive in 5. He brought the job to the forefront. "Chart the quickest path to this job, the direct route," Moss ordered. "This job may be of higher difficulty than," Tu began, but Moss cut him off, firing up his bike's engine. "Just chart it," he demanded. "Of course," Tu acquiesced, displaying a line directly to the work. The bike rocketed through the field of panels, the thrusters kicking up earth and rocks as he sped to the job. "Any damage to your bike," Tu began, but Moss was too excited to let him finish. "I know it. I'll make up for it in job completion," Moss announced. He kept an eye on the time as he weaved through the fields. The company docked pay for time spent without designating a work order, but Moss did not want to give Ira a heads-up to his plan. He felt a thud, and the bike bounced over a large rock that he had not been quick enough to avoid. But he smiled. He was making good time. Soon the dot of the job appeared in his HUD. He was close. He saw the panel sparking in the distance, and it drove him forward. He would stop for nothing. He saw neither Ira's drudge nor the assigned engineer. A devilish smile crossed his lips as he selected Designate Job and turned his bike to come to a stop with a flourish at the base of the panel. Accept work order. His heart raced. The job was his. Osiris pulled up a moment later. "Well played, kid," he conceded. And Moss knew that somewhere the man was kicking himself. "All's fair." Moss heard the bravado in Tu's transmitted words. Osiris gave a conciliatory nod before fishtailing his bike in a plume of dust and speeding away to steal someone else's work. Moss beamed a moment before realizing he now actually had to complete the repair. "All right, Tu, let's do this." "Yes, sir," the drudge replied, and they got to work. As he finished the complex job, he heard a pounding and shook his head, Tu's robotic head moving back and forth in near unison. "You hear that?" Moss asked. "Negative," Tu replied, and Moss brought up a system check which ran instantly. "System normal," the screen displayed. He heard the pounding again. "Could the sound be coming from your hex? There have been 4 reports of malfunctioning pipes on your floor in the past 2 weeks, according to records." Tu helped. "Could be. Go into standby for a moment?" he asked, and heard Tu whir down. He flipped the switch in his hand and blinked hard at being in the real world so quickly. His implant felt awkward. As his eyes adjusted, he heard the pounding one more time and realized it was coming from the door to his hex. Doorbell? And the screen displayed the empty hallway in front of his door. He furrowed his brows, confused and bothered. He didn't understand how someone could be knocking on his door, as that was what he had decided it sounded like, but not be in the hall. Moss heard the pounding through the heavy plastic door and muffled words. Nervous, he walked over and pressed open. The door hissed up, and before him stood an angry-looking woman dressed in the most peculiar way Moss had ever seen. "Take longer," she growled, and Moss just stared. She wore a white fishnet bodysuit which showed from within her tall black leather boots up to her neck. From a studded black leather belt hung a tartan skirt cut with slits and an ancient military-style beltea, studded leather straps which served as groin protection. The ensemble was completed with a tattered leather jacket with small metal spikes running along the shoulders and down the arms, with patches covering nearly every inch. Her neon-pink micro-dyed hair shimmered with silver, like a cascading waterfall. Black eyeliner smudged with sweat encircled impatiently expectant eyes. "You gonna let me in?" She gestured for Moss to move inside before looking back and forth down the hall. "We don't have all day to stand here. Are you ready to go?" "You have the wrong person," Moss squeaked, positioning his body to keep her at the door. She was instantly the sexiest and most terrifying thing he had ever come in contact with. He questioned if he was in the midst of a lucid dream. This person could not be real. She wasn't actually standing before him. She rolled her eyes and shoved him into the hex, slamming a hand against the close button on the doorframe. "I don't have the wrong person," she said in a tone which made Moss feel as though he was stupid, Who are you?" he forced from his mouth. She answered his question with a question. "You're Moss, right?" "Yes," he said, utterly nonplussed. "So what's the fucking holdup?" she snarled. Moss looked around the room as though there would be cameras set up. He had seen shows on the Burb network where the hosts would play pranks on unsuspecting employees. The woman seemed to watch his eyes. "Are we being watched?" she accused more than asked. He held up his hands and his voice shook. "What? No, I don't know. What's your problem? You don't seem ready to go at all. I don't see a bag and you're wearing—" She grabbed his sleeve. "What are these, pajamas?" Moss's heart was racing, and he could feel sweat coating his body. He had never been so confounded in his life, and this angry person was talking to him like he was someone else. He found some courage buried within him. "Look, I don't know who you are, what you think you're doing here, or who you think I am, but I am not the person you're looking for," he stated, trying to square his shoulders and look tough. But even he knew he looked weak. It was the woman's turn to look confused. "Chicken Thumbs never found you?" she asked, and Moss didn't understand the question or know how to respond to it. "What does that even mean?" he asked, and the woman dropped her head, her shoulder-length hair shimmering in front of her face. "Shit," she uttered, and looked back up at him sorrowfully. "Sit down." Chapter 2. "Who are you?" Moss demanded, in as tough a voice as he could muster. "Ina," she answered, turning her eyes on him. In them he saw several lifetimes of age, though she appeared to be only a few years his senior, if that. "Please sit down," she said in a softer tone, which made him all the more uneasy. He complied and sat in the single chair by the fourier. "CT was going to fill you in on all this, but maybe he got caught." The word "caught" made Moss even more nervous, and he unconsciously began bouncing his knee. "What are you talking about?" He heard the resignation in his own voice, as if he had accepted the defeat of pure confusion. "Listen, Moss, you were part of something. Your parents—" Ina began, but was cut short. "Alert!" A computerized voice crackled through the speaker in the room, and Ina's eyes went wide with terror. "You have been away from work for 5 minutes, employee. If you are experiencing medical distress, please enter your dermadose and allow for a scan. Thudoko values you and your health." "The fuck?" Ina asked. "It's my shift. I can't just log out during work," he explained. "Yikes," she mocked, but Moss didn't understand. "Can you deal with that? We need a little time." Yeah, okay," Moss mumbled as he stood. He walked over to his workspace and began entering the manual commands on the screen. Application for early break. A drop-down menu appeared, requiring a reason for the request. Personal time. It was instantly approved. Moss had not used any personal time in years, and had more than enough accrued to take the rest of the week off. Content to work during the day and watch the screen at night, he had never used a vacation day either. He often told people he wanted to get out and see the world, and he did, theoretically. Something within him did want to experience what the wider world had to offer, but he had become too content, too complacent to act on it. He had used one sick day. It still haunted him, the one taint on an otherwise perfect record. But he was too sick to move from his bed, and DocBot gave him such a heavy cocktail of drugs that Moss slept through nearly the whole day. He was fine by the following morning when he found out that most employees had spent the previous day the same way he had. The rumor was that some of the bacteria which made the land outside the cities poisonous to humans had gotten into the food. But Moss thought it doubtful. He believed Thudoko when they explained to the employees that the bacteria from the profit route, which had saved and cursed humanity, had never made its way into the food distribution subsystems. "Okay," he told Ina. "We have time." He didn't know why he was accommodating all this. He could easily call security silently and have this woman taken away. He couldn't understand why he didn't do it. It would be so easy. Be done with this entire moment so quickly. Make it a memory of that one time some weirdo showed up at his hex. He knew that with every passing moment he could be getting himself into trouble. But he didn't send her away. He sat down and waited for her to speak. She did. "Okay, Moss, here goes," she began, seeming to struggle to find the right way to explain things. "CT would have been able to explain this better. I was not supposed to, but whatever. You are one small cog here in a massive, evil industrial machine. But there are people outside who are working to expose Thudoko to the world. We are trying to get information out, but we need help from within, and that's why I am here. To help you, help us. Her crystal blue eyes stared into his, reading his reaction. He didn't understand what she meant. Employees complained about their jobs and the IRAs of the world, but he had never heard the word evil ascribed to the company. We feed the world, he protested. She rolled her eyes. Sure. And off-world, too, he added, pointing a finger toward the ceiling to help his point. While that may be true, you also kill the world, she pointed out, clearly trying to suppress anger. Her eyes narrowed and her fingers dug into her knee. Some death is the price of all life, he parroted another company line. Ina groaned, seeming to hate that she was even engaging in this conversation. Do you know how people live outside of this building? Have you ever even left it? She pressed. No, Moss admitted, feeling ashamed of himself, though he didn't understand why. She looked at him with a mixture of sadness and pity. Well, it's bad out there. You'll see tonight. What's tonight? He asked nervously, not sure he wanted the answer. He was beginning to feel as though he was careening toward the edge of a cliff. And while his knee bounced more than it ever had in his life, a curious spark of excitement was igniting a flame. Tonight, you take this to me at a bar in the city. And she extended a robotic hand out to him, the metal fingers unfurling like the legs of spiders to reveal a data chip. He stared at her hand, the crude exposed wires, gears, and rusted bolts. He had never seen anything like it. Any cybernetics he had seen were near-perfect recreations of the human form. The relief aids were nothing more than metal, silicone, and plastic wrapped in a polydimethylsilicane skin. Yet, to touch and see them, they were as real to him as people. Her hand was more drudge than a person. What? He asked. Why would I take it? You take it. She looked at him pityingly. I can't take it. I barely got in here. There's no way I'm getting out with Thudoko technology, but you can. Why would I? He snapped, saying it before thinking. Because you're in this now, she said, holding the chip toward him. No, I'm not. Not yet. I don't know you, or why you think I should be involved, but I'm not in anything, he stated, not sounding nearly as firm as he hoped. She stared at him with steely determination. You are. Maybe I'll just call security. Give them whatever this is, he said, as he picked the chip out of her hand. You could, but you won't, she said with cool confidence, knowing something he didn't. Why not? He asked. Because it's not what your parents wanted, she stated, and Moss felt as though he had been pushed off a cliff. What? He heard himself mutter. My parents are dead. No shit! Ina barked a laugh that sent a cold chill skittering down his spine. But they were a part of this. Shit! They're basically the cause of this. And they wanted you to be also when the time was right. And the time will never be righter than now. You knew them? Was all he could force from his lips. It had been so long since he had seen those flashlights in the night. So long since he had seen his parents. Yes, Ina said softly, and put a human hand on his. They wanted this for you. He knew it was the truth. He felt as though he should doubt her, but he knew. The fact that this strange person had known his parents made more sense to him than anything the Thudoko representatives had told him. Thousands of questions poured into his mind at once. He wanted to sit this woman down and ask her everything about his parents, the company he worked for, and the outside world. He felt moved to be a part of whatever this was, leave this place, and never look back. He was jarred from this by another loud noise and flashing red lights. Security alert! Please remain in your hex and await further instruction, a synthesized voice commanded through the speaker in his room. Oh, shit. I thought I would have more time, Ina said, terror playing across her face. Meet me at the long-legged spinners at 0200 hours, she ordered, and Moss realized he still held the chip in his hand. Here, let's wake you up. Ina pressed her robotic hand to the implant point at the base of his skull, one of her eyes going black and causing his vision to flicker. When she was finished with whatever she was doing to him, she darted across the room, pressed the metal hand on the door panel, and was gone before Moss could even react. After a moment, he got his bearings and pursued her to the door, which had shut instantly upon her departure. He pressed open, but the screen read, "Unavailable at this time." He was locked in the space amidst flashing red. He knew his life had changed. Chapter 3. After a minute, the flashing red light stopped, and the normal lighting returned. He looked down at the chip in his hand. It looked like any other, like the 20 or so assorted ones he had in the drawer next to his workstation. He flipped it over in his hand, contemplating what had just happened, and still not entirely believing it. He had a headache. He knew he should log back into work, but guessed that most people had probably logged out too when they heard the alert. Hundreds of miles away, in toxic fields, solar farms, and mines, drudges were standing as statues frozen in time, gargoyles of the technological age. Moss rubbed the back of his neck. His implant bothered him more than ever. He looked at the clock display at his workstation. 10:23 a.m. There was still so much of the day left, and he did not know what to do with himself. He was tempted to simply hand the chip over to security when they arrived, but he wasn't sure. He couldn't tell what he wanted to do anymore. Call Gibbs, he thought, having programmed his friend's hex number such that he could simply place the call by name. The employee you are trying to reach is currently experiencing a security alert. Do you wish to attempt an override? Your call will be monitored for security purposes. Thudoco takes the safety of its employees seriously. Moss ended the transmission and sat in silence. He thought about Ina. The anger, desperation, and intensity of her eyes. He wanted to see her again. He wanted to know what this was all about. But more than anything, he wanted to know more about his parents. The panel on his door buzzed, and Moss hurried to jam the chip into the drawer of chips. Please be aware, BurbSec entering in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the door slid open. 2 BurbSec officers entered, covered head to toe in black fibermail mesh topped with gray plate armor. The Thudoco logo was emblazoned on their shoulders, and nothing more than their faces were exposed to let one know they were people rather than machines, though with the helmets closed they would be nearly indistinguishable. Kingfisher particle beam pistols hung on their belts, clicking ominously against their leg armor. The first face which entered was that of a man Moss didn't recognize. Bearded, with suspicious eyes and a scar on his forehead, he looked around the room, analyzing everything. Izzy followed behind and gave a quick wave to Moss. He hurried over and sidled up beside her. What's all this? He whispered. We don't know much more than you, data breach. But we are doing a room-by-room check. It'll probably take all day, she told him, and looked up at him with a small smile. Retinal analysis? He heard in his mind's ear. It was like that of Izzy's voice, but different and foreign, as though he was hearing her speak to him underwater. The realization of what this meant struck him. He had not understood what Ina had meant when she said, "Wake you up," but it was now clear. She had hacked his implant, so he could now hear others' neural commands. More than the fact that she had set off a burb-wide security alert, the fact that he could do this truly meant that what he had experienced had been real. But why had she done this? What was the point of him having this ability? And why was Izzy scanning him while they spoke? He knew security officers had one eye replaced so they could run analysis while working, but he never expected his friend would use it on him.